I'm going to introduce our presenters now. I thought your pictures would be on that next slide. So, Dr. Margarita Calderón is a professor emerita at Johns Hopkins University. Her research and professional development project focus on developing and implementing evidence-based bilingual and biliteracy instruction. She has over 100 publications and presents at national and international conferences. And she is the author of Coaching for Multilingual Excellence. Recently, she has been inducted into the Multilingual Education Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Margarita. Lisa Tartaglia is a high school assistant principal with Loudoun County Public Schools. She has over 25 years of experience as a teacher, reading specialist, and coach at the elementary and high school levels. She holds degrees in early childhood, reading, and administration. She co-authored Cultivating Competence in English Learners with Dr. Calderón. Juliana Johnson-Lewis is a multilingual learner who arrived from Peru at the age of 14. She is currently a middle school assistant principal and educational consultant. Her previous positions include instructional coach, curriculum writer and coordinator, dean of students, professional development lead, and EL teacher in Title I schools. So thank you all so much for joining us, and I will leave it to you to take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Good afternoon, good evening, good wherever you're coming from. We're happy that you're with us. We want to leave these takeaways for you today. We want to discuss why coaching for multilingual excellence is critical these days. We will talk about the key components and the process of multilingual coaching and how that is different from general types of coaching. Also, how do we integrate all of this into our current system? So we'll be dealing with that. Plus, we want to share some things that we've learned about how we prepare our coaches. By the way, how many of you are coaches? Would you put in the chat box? Who's a coach here? There's a lot of information we want to share with you, but also if we have administrators or if we have coaches, then we want you to take this information back and you help the coaches as well as the coaches will help you. I did a survey about a year and a half ago, and I asked coaches throughout the country, why coaching for multilingual excellence? Is that important? Can you ask your teachers what they think? And this is the results. The pre-K-5 general education teachers with multilingual learners asked for guidance from a knowledgeable coach about multilingual instruction, not just a coach, but one who really knew evidence-based instruction. The teachers in middle schools and high schools with the core content and special subjects wanted coaching that is relevant to multilingual learning as well. How do I help the multilingual learners within my subject area? And then there were teachers in dual language programs. They wanted to know why is it that everyone says that dual language programs are the best, that we're doing a great job? Can you come in as my coach and tell me what is working well? But also you might have a couple of suggestions as to what else I could do to make it even better. Administrators and coaches want to know how to help teachers and how to help students succeed. And of course, everyone wanted to know, how do we accelerate multilingual excellence? Well, we know from research that we can forecast transfer from training to have an impact on teachers as well as students. But it has to start with excellent professional development. If we take a look at that first column and we look at the column vertically, we'll see that these are the training components that need to occur in case there's uh, in order for it to be successful. I'm watching my sleeve go up and down, and that is kind of funny. But yeah, I think it's the virtual thing. So just let it. It's not my shoulder. It's the virtual background, I think. But anyway, what is excellent professional development? It consists of theory and lecture, modeling of strategies, demonstrating strategies through videos, through hands-on, uh, time to practice these strategies and get feedback from peers, as well as feedback from facilitators. So all those are the key components for an excellent PD program. But look at the bottom line, coaching. Coaching is what's going to sustain this wonderful professional development. Let's say you spent thousands of dollars doing 5 days of PD, doing theory, modeling, practice, etc. But without the coaching, we're going to see that it doesn't really work out. Now, if we look at the horizontal lines, look at the level of knowledge that you will derive. Let's say if you have 100 participants and you're doing a comprehensive workshop on vocabulary, look at the results. 80% of your participants will be able to walk out of the workshop with a high level of knowledge. But only 5% of those will be able to implement it well. And if we visit the 100 teachers a year later, we'll see that only that 5% are still implementing it. And the student effect size, the effect on the students has been minimal. But when we add modeling, demonstration, practice, feedback, and look at that column where we see that the level of knowledge, the level of skill goes way up. But if we visit all of those teachers a year later, we see that the same 5%, la creme de la creme from the schools, you know who they are, right? Or maybe they're here in this webinar, but those 5% will have a bigger impact on the student population, but not as much as that bottom line. The bottom line tells us that not only do the majority of the participants develop a high level of knowledge and skill, but a year later, they will still be implementing it with frequency, fidelity, quality, and look at the impact on the students. It's amazing. It'll be amazing. So coaching is what's going to make things happen at a school district, anywhere. And so, what is the content of ML coaching? It's the integration of language, literacy, discourse, social emotional learning with content. We know that vocabulary is critical. It's the foundation of everything. But it's not the only thing. Vocabulary has to be an integral part of reading and writing. The students need to practice those words immediately when they start to read. Multilingual learners are not reading enough. They need to read in order to learn the content that they will later express in their writing. And so the writing it hinges on a lot of reading, a lot of vocabulary. And if you look at that little purple tin can, you'll see that without student talk, without discourse, without social emotional learning strategies to help the students feel comfortable about talking, about interacting with others, the reading, the writing, the vocabulary is not going to work. That little aceitito, that little oil needs to be spread throughout the year. I also asked the coaches, what knowledge do you want this coming year, 2025? What would you like to see? Learn more. And look at the bubbles. The bigger bubbles are the ones that indicate the number of coaches that wanted more training on these areas. And we see that reading in the content areas was the largest bubble. Of course, discourse and interaction, peer interaction is the other one. We need to get the darlings talking. So we need strategies that are also woven throughout all the different components for students to process information verbally, not just in silence, but verbally. And you'll see that they also wanted, as much as possible, on the other bubbles, of course, vocabulary, cultural knowledge. They wanted to know more about their students and writing, and of course, core content knowledge. Now, let me pause here and ask you to type in the chat box, what other skills do you think coaches need? Those of you that have been coached, those of you that are coaching, any administrators that might be thinking of implementing a coaching program, would you please type? Yes, we're getting some already. Content knowledge, yes. How to work with adults, organizational skills, relationship building, yes, yes. I think, it's good to go over that. Prioritizing, use of data, yes, data. Data, I love that. Data literacy, relationships, excellent, excellent. Well, keep typing. We'll come back and look at all your wonderful comments, strategies. Yes, accountable talk and strategies. But let's look at this. This is something that coaches and teachers want to put together. We want them to have a coaching playbook. This playbook is constructed with the teachers. They need to work together to determine, okay, if we're going to start a high quality professional development program on vocabulary, reading, and writing, then let's map out how we're going to do this. So some schools, some coaches like to start out with learning all about vocabulary, a safe context for learning, the social emotional norms, selecting and teaching vocabulary. And once that PD takes place, that's when the coaching begins. The coaching has to be sustained throughout the year, but we can chunk the content into different pieces like this particular school did. They started out with vocabulary. They worked on vocabulary for a couple of weeks. Other schools worked on it for a couple of months. But all the while, the coach was working with the teachers. The coaches were observing and giving feedback. Then a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, the coaches were now focusing on reading. So then the workshops, everything had to do with reading, the discourse for reading, students' reading strategies, anchoring knowledge, literacy, and content, getting the students to talk more. And then, of course, the coaching was taking place throughout. Afterwards, they started working on writing. What are some of those cell norms for writing? What are the writing conventions, the writing process, assessments? And the coaches kept coaching and coaching throughout the year. That's how things were mapped out in this particular coaching book. You you might want to think about your coaching playbook and make it succinct enough. Don't get carried away. Make it succinct enough so that everyone gets a copy. The administration, the leadership, the teachers, the coaches, the counselors, everyone must be involved in knowing what coaching means. As you noticed, one of the questions was knowing more about the culture of the students. And it is important. It's important to start now by sharing something like this with the teachers, with the whole school, that there are 14 categories of multilingual learners. And we need to know, the teachers need to know who they have in their classrooms. Do they have newcomers? Do they have long-term Ls? Do they have students who have never been counted or identified? Maybe they've exited already, or they just arrived, they haven't yet been identified, or they're heritage bilinguals, they were never tested because they are bilingual. So find out who you are, who has what students in what classroom, and help the teachers work toward targeting specific strategies to help them accelerate their learning. Hence, professional development learning means that everyone is learning academic language, discourse, reading comprehension, text-based writing. Everyone in the schools needs to be aware of this. And this will help not only the multilingual learners, but all other learners as well. Along with the professional learning about language, part of the PD has to be on coaching as a school-wide system, coaching procedures. How are we going to do this? What are the schedules? What about communication systems? What observation tools are we going to use? Are we also going to have peer coaching? Maybe we could do some student coaching and family coaching as well. And so both of these, as you'll see, are just as important as the content of a professional development program. And the more the participants know about the coaching plan, the quicker they'll buy into it. It's answering that why. Everybody wants to know why. Why do I have to do this? Well, let's talk about this and let's begin to address some of those things that we need. You'll see that the multilingual coaching framework parallels Jim Knight's impact cycle for our multilingual learners. And there's a book there. It's also from Corwin, but it's a fabulous book because it talks about how do we get the partnership started between teacher and coach? What are communication skills that we can learn? Who are we as leaders, not just coaches? What about our impact cycles? How do we identify, learn, and improve? And data collection. I was so happy to see many of you mention data collection. And of course, the instructional playbook. You need these playbooks so that they're handy, they can look at them quickly and not have to thumb through a lot of materials. System support. Everyone needs to support this at the district level, at the school level. And here is our version of the coach, the role of the coach. It's mainly to increase instructional effectiveness of each teacher in a school, because they all have multilingual learners or will have soon, and help them master language literacy, et cetera, et cetera. but it's also to help develop those relationships between teachers and students. Most importantly, it's to move the school from the goal of compliance. Yes, we want compliance, but we don't know what policies are going to be like this year, right? We don't know what's happening. And so we should set our goal, our target, not just for federal regulations, but our goal should be excellence, excellent learning for everyone in the school. And for that, we want to embrace an assets-based approach where we value the diverse students and all the strengths and all the talents that they bring. And of course, we want everyone to be more self-directed, resourceful, reflective, and mindful of personal growth. Data, data, data. Show me the data. Data from videos, observation tools, help collect objective data, share non-biased feedback to the teachers, and show the teachers how to go from novice to proficiency to efficacy, and show the transfer system, how we go from professional development and how that transfers into the teaching repertoire, and how the teaching repertoire transfers into student academic gains. Also, we want to identify goals. Every time we visit a teacher, we need to identify goals. As John Campbell said, if there's no goal, it's just a nice conversation. So, what are your thoughts so far? Type some observations, questions, anything that we can discuss either now or at the end of the session.
Margarita, someone asked about family coaching, what that looked like.
Inviting families to the school. Once the coaching is already started with teachers and coaches, then using some of the same strategies, especially how to teach words, how to teach vocabulary to the children, that can also be coaching.
Margarita, to your question earlier, we have 23 coaches and at least 4 administrators, including school and district.
Wonderful. Excellent. That's terrific. Okay. Well, as they're typing, why don't we move on? How do you approach teachers who feel they cannot teach ML learners? Okay, we're going to touch a little bit on that. Lisa will start, and then
All right, so we're going to build upon where Margarita was talking about increasing instructional effectiveness for EL mastery of language and literacy. So here are those wheels again. We have reading, writing, vocabulary, and again, the oil that makes them all go around, and that would be your peer talk and peer discourse. So when you're coaching teachers, looking at their lessons and helping them to make sure that there are opportunities for students to practice their vocabulary, to work on vocabulary, for reading, for writing, and a lot of peer talk. So that would be one of the goals of the coach. So for example, here in coaching vocabulary, a coach can work with a teacher by looking at upcoming mentor texts that they'll be using. It might be a passage they're reading. It could be an article, maybe it's a textbook, and they would work with the teacher to parse the text and look for tier 2 vocabulary words, that academic vocabulary that they predict the students may not know. And so then select some of them to pre-teach to the students before they work with the text. Once they select those words, they can work with the teacher to use the 7-step method that we'll be showing you in a few minutes to pre-teach those tier 2 vocabulary words to the students. Other things the coach can work with the teacher is to create opportunities to use those vocabulary words throughout the lesson, in their reading, in their discourse, exit tickets, and then also opportunities in the discourse by having discussion and cooperative activities with the text. So helping those teachers to see and provide opportunities for the students to use those vocabulary words. And so then we'll show you the 3 different types of tiered vocabulary words on the next slide.
The computer froze. There we go.
Oh no. All right, we're back. Yay. So we tier vocabulary words in 3 different ways. Our tier 3 words are those subject specific words. Those are your content words, science words, math words. In English, the terms used in the English curriculum. They are infrequently used academic words. They probably wouldn't use them across different content areas. Our tier 2 words are those information processing words. Those are the words that might be in the definitions or in the sentences. With tier 3 words, they might be multiple meaning or polysemous words, transition words, connector words, and words you want to see them use that are more sophisticated or help provide rich discussions and specificity in descriptions. And then we have those tier 1 words. Those are words that our EL and ML students need to communicate, those basic words, but they may need to be pre-taught as well. We're going to focus on the tier 2 words to look for those words to help students learn the content. They need those tier 2 words.
So we will role play for you. And to answer some of the questions, teachers are very reluctant and they're scared. They're scared of teaching multilingual learners because they've never been exposed to quality professional development, or they haven't been at a session long enough to practice and to walk out of there feeling confident that they can do this. So if you have reluctant teachers, offer PDs, even if it's only for the few that are still not wanting to do this for whatever reason, then be sure to model for them. And here's something that you can take back. This is an easy one. We usually start with something like this for vocabulary. And the core content teachers love it because it's easy. You'll see that it's only 7 steps. Steps number 1 through 5 are for the teacher. And step number 6 are for students to engage for 60 seconds using the word that the teacher is using. They ping pong back and forth. We're going to role play this for you. Steps 1 through 5 should only take 1 minute. Step number 6 should only take 1 minute. And step number 7 is what we call the accountability step. This is where we inform the students when we want to hear the word, where we want to see it. So Juliana and Lisa, you want to role play with me? Here we go. I'll be the teacher and they're going to be my students. And those of you can also be students. Why don't you role play along? And if you have a buddy sitting next to you, you can practice step 6 when we get there. Okay, so here we go. Students, say primarily due to 3 times after me. Primarily due to.
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 Thank you. We're going to read something that says human activities contributing to climate change are primarily due to the release of billions of tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. Now, the dictionary says that primarily due to means mainly caused by or because of. But let me give you an example. I am excited primarily due to the collaboration with awesome educators here today. Now, primarily due to is a phrase. So students, please use it as a phrase and start with this sentence starter. I am excited primarily due to, and then you fill in the blank, ping pong for a minute. I will time you.
I am excited primarily due to seeing all of these coaches and administrators wanting to learn more about coaching ML students.
I'm excited primarily due to giving this presentation in such important times.
I'm excited primarily due to thinking about what everyone's going to bring back to their staff, what they learn from here.
I'm excited primarily due to the number of administrators and coaches I'm seeing in the chat.
Okay, time. Thank you, Lisa, Saved by the Bell. We only want to spend 1 minute because we want this to go very fast. Teachers could be teaching 5 words at the beginning of a class. It will only take 10 minutes. And so high school teachers, middle school teachers, other teachers, don't complain that it's taking up too much time. You know, there are other vocabulary strategies that take up to 15, 20 minutes to teach only 1 word. This only takes 2 minutes. But let me share what coaches can do here. So here's an observation protocol. The teacher asks the coach, after they've gone through the workshop, a quality workshop. I can't emphasize that enough. A quality where they walk out of there feeling really confident and well tooled. So the teacher would ask the coach, would you please come and observe me do the 7 steps? And you see the 7 steps here in this purple circle. And the teacher will say, just put a check mark after the steps that I actually do. And if I skip one, then we can talk about that later, okay? But so the teacher will practice this for a couple of coaching instances until the teacher feels very comfortable. Then possibly the next observation, the teacher will ask the coach to observe the students and will say something like, would you please tabulate in red which are my students that are providing wonderful responses? Who's doing really well in terms of vocabulary, discourse, using the complete sentences, etc.? Or maybe the next time the teacher will say, I know there's some students struggling and I'm not quite sure where they're at. And so would you please just draw a blue circle around them and let me know if I have any distractors in my classroom. And if I do, would you please draw a green circle around them? So the teacher can request any kind of assistance for issues that might be occurring in the classroom. And so this observation protocol deals, of course, with just vocabulary. After a few instances, even those most reluctant teachers will want feedback from their coach because they're working on just this one thing. Start small, and then later they can catch up with the rest that might be doing some other things. Now let's look at this development during step 6.
So skill development during step 6. So students, when they are doing step 6 with the vocabulary, they are developing a lot of interpersonal skills. They're listening to their partner, taking turns, they're supporting their partner. If their partner can't think of something to fill in the sentence, they help them. It's a great way for them to practice their social interactions with each other. It also supports cognitive growth. They're keeping information in mind. They're having to think, use information and apply it. And they're willing to try. We see because they're in partners, not in front of the whole class. They are willing to try and they're able to accept feedback from each other or ask for help.
So the question is, why? Why use observation protocols like the one that we shared with you? Would you type in the chat box? Why should we use an observation protocol? It's a very simple one, but what are the benefits of that observation protocol? Objective data, yes, to give feedback. Excellent. We're collecting evidence. Uh-huh. If you if you expect it, yeah, inspect it. Very accessible it is. And the teachers know the expectations. They're not that hard. And well, once you have this observation protocol, just share it with the teacher, and the teacher will see it, and it helps the coach because you don't have to explain a lot. The teacher will immediately see what what happened in the classroom, and that takes a lot of the pressure off the coach, right? Okay, keep typing. But we want to share this other strategy. This is the reading strategy. And just very quickly, we're going to talk about it very quickly. It's called partner reading plus summarization or summarizing. This has the biggest reading effect size. It's a 0.79 effect size. So those of you interested in that, because it really gets the students to delve deeply into comprehension. So, for instance, student A, let's say Lisa starts reading the first sentence, and then Margarita reads the second sentence. We're reading aloud, okay? And after we finish reading, we go back and we just start talking about. So, Lisa, what do you think is important here? What is it saying? It's talking about natural causes, but then it's talking about us human. What else do you see here, Lisa?
It tells us where some of the greenhouse gases are coming from, and it is due to some human activity and things that we do.
Yeah. What kind of question you think our teacher's going to ask us from here?
Where greenhouse gases come from.
Yeah. So we better be prepared because I'm sure, yeah, our mean teacher will want to ask us. And yes. And so after we read a paragraph, we stop and summarize. We read the second paragraph, we stop and summarize. And so we read that for a couple of pages. It doesn't have to be the whole text, but a couple of pages because this is helping us to actually learn how to read. And we we transfer all of these skills into our reading skills. And here we have the skills during partner reading, which, as you can see, are basically the same: interpersonal, intrapersonal. Cognitive growth has to do with close reading. Students are now learning how to do close reading, whereas before they did a lot of superficial reading, right? They pretend to be reading and they like to answer, some questions, but they don't go in, there's no depth to their comprehension. And so we want to make sure that they do. When you get this PowerPoint and you meet with others at your school, there's some debriefing questions here, some questions for you to do some further discussion with them about partner reading and vocabulary. And discourse, we want to know if students are talking. Well, we got to move around the room. That's when the teacher and the coach can monitor take notes and figure out who's doing what. There are also many observation strategies that we can use to collect data when they're working in teams of 4, and we want them to use specific transition words. Here's an example. But let's look at some student-focused observations.
Margarita, there is a great question in the chat about adapting some of the activities that we need to say for maybe towards the end of the presentation. But when we talk about student-focused observations, I really like this chart because this is kind of like what Lisa and Margarita have been talking about. So our students, how do we know that they're engaged? A lot of the times it's like, well, they're talking, okay, but are they talking about what happened over the weekend, who had pizza or who watched the Barcelona soccer game, or are they using academic vocabulary and sentence frames, sentence starters to frame their conversations about the topic? So for example, in terms of collaboration, how do we know that they're collaborating with each other? If they're working on a poster, we need to make sure that they are as the teachers were providing the sentence frames, the sentence starters, so that they're able to communicate, especially when they're in the lower end, the R level 1s and 2s, newly arrived students. We have to provide that foundation. And to be honest, it's everyone, because a lot of the times if we're in a new group with students, it's like, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to be the first one, or I'm going to copy what my partner said. But if we provide these tools, students are going to be able to collaborate and start coming out of the shell. And in terms of using academic language, this is the thing. This is why step 6 is so important when we're talking about the 7 steps, because this is when they're using those words that we're teaching students. Those tier 2 vocabulary words were like primarily due to. I'm going to be using it in the conversation because I already learned it from the teacher. And then, we're talking data. This is a big one. How do we know that they're on track? We don't have to wait until the very end when they're taking the assessment. These are just conversations. These are those sentence frames that students are using, and then we're going around monitoring their conversations. These are also the different assignments that we're giving them in the classroom to do those formative and summative assessments that we're going to be used to track their learning and to see if they're confused. What do we need to do to reteach? We don't have to reteach the whole class, but this is when we can provide independent work so that we can remediate or provide those extension activities. And in terms of the goal, what is your goal with this? This is where it comes to backwards planning. Because if we know what our ultimate goal is, yes, we want them all to learn. But if we're doing student-focused observations, and also as the teacher to provide them guidance, we need to target to just one goal. Our goal is for them to interact with the content that I'm teaching them on this particular day. That way it doesn't become too overwhelming for students and for the teacher. And this comes to analyzing the learning experience. How do we go on reflecting about the whole learning experience? And again, I said, backwards planning. So our students manipulating them in their learning, and by manipulating is, are we providing them time to use it in the 4 language domains? Because they're going to listen when we teach it, but then are we being intentional as to what words we're using from the mentor text to provide that opportunity? Because we're going to be using possibly the 7 steps to use the words, but we're not going to be using the 7 steps for every single word, because if I have a class of level 1 students, I might have to teach more than that. But what strategies are we going to use? Could we use a teacher read aloud, in which, or summarization like Margarita and Lisa just practiced, so that students are able to use these words in the right context? And then can we add an exit ticket? Okay, we read it as a class, you listen, we practice with our peers, ping pong style. Now we're going to provide a summary, and your exit ticket is you're going to provide me a short summary as to what we just read in class or we just learned. And again, is providing those opportunities for meaningful interactions. We go to the next slide. And to continue with that with new content, right? We have a lot of concepts, a lot of skills to teach, but then we also have vocabulary to teach. And this is where, as with colleagues, we work in interdisciplinary teams. We work with our colleagues across the content area saying, so for example, if I am the English teacher and I'm going to be teaching organizational patterns, I will be providing these words to Margarita, because Margarita might be the science teacher and she is, students might be able to, will be working on the chemical and physical changes, but then they could be using some of the words that they're learning in my English class, or Elisa is the history teacher, again, so that when they go from class to class, they're seeing these higher level words. But again, that's when they start making the connection, we build the background, and then we move forward. And again, this just provides more opportunity for exposure, and they're able to build their self-esteem for when they come from class to class, and they're able to use all of these words and the different strategies. And really, when we've then put ourselves in the students' shoes, then as the teacher is, okay, kind of like, what have I done to address, this is the vocabulary, the multiple exposures, and my one goal, which was student interaction.
Thank you. I see that we're running out of time, and I know there's some questions, and I think Melissa wants to give away some books. And so I just want to point out that there are some additional tips from our coaches. By the way, the book has tips from 8 fabulous, wonderful coaches. You heard from 2 of them here today. And the book has all the strategies that we practiced, as well as other tools, how to give feedback, more on feedback, teacher-focused, student-focused, and more information on how to work on your playbooks and your TLCs, and a reminder that it depends on how much PD and coaching is offered that's going to result in high student growth. Otherwise, it'll remain the same. So you have a lot of tools there in that book, but we do want to answer at least a question or so. Okay, I saw one about newcomers. Is that the one you were looking at?
Yes.
Okay, good. For newcomers, think of the 7-step vocabulary strategy. For K2 and for newcomers, leave out the dictionary definition and leave out the grammar. Just repeat the word, have them repeat the word, give them some nice examples so that they understand what it is, but have them do the ping pong with the buddy for at least 30 seconds. We need to get them to talk. It's okay if teachers talk, but we need to get them to talk. And partner reading, if they can't read, they can certainly talk about some pictures that they can see, that can be looking at the same picture and talk about those pictures in ping pong style. When they're reading, they should be reading no matter how easy those books are. And they may not comprehend every single word, but it's important that they start reading from day one. There's no such thing as a silent period. Students need to talk, to read, and to write from day one. I'm talking about the newcomers. The newcomers need to feel that they're part of the class, that they can, I see the little hearts, thank you. We can encourage them by partnering them. When they're partnered, when there's 2 of them together, they feel more confident and they're not embarrassed, as Juliana was saying, and it just creates a safe context for them. So Lisa, Juliana, what else would you like to add to that?
Someone did have a question about more details on the coaching process. So I don't know.
Uh-huh. more details on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fiona asked if there was more details on the coaching process.
Yes, there's a lot of details. As you can see, we have how do and there was a question, how do we work with teachers who are not too happy about doing this? So there's a section on reluctant teachers. There's processes, there's ways of getting teachers to feel more comfortable. And you notice that on one of the slides, we had only questions. Feedback is giving teachers a set of questions instead of giving them feedback right away. We thank them and we show them the observation protocol. And then we ask them, what did you think about your lesson? What are your thoughts? What did you like best about your lesson? What did you observe your darlings do? Well, here's the data I collected. What do you see? What would you like to discuss a little bit further? Do you have questions for me? And then once the discussion is finished, what goal would you set for your next lesson? We've done this. We've coached during COVID. We coach hundreds and hundreds of teachers, and we coach them online. And this was a formula, and it worked. It worked really well. It may seem simplistic, but yeah, we were really happy with the results. And yes, I understand you will get a copy of the presentation. And yeah. Oh, and you
So-
have. Mhm.
Margarita, do you want us to provide a copy of the presentation? We don't always do that. Sometimes presenters don't like to do that.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine with
To you.
Yeah. No, I'm too old to hang on to things. Yeah, we got to get the word out.
Thank you. Okay, I will update our email that goes out to attendees so that it includes a link to the presentation.
Thank you. And do keep in mind, all of this is research-based. You see the gray hair? I have spent 40 years conducting research in hundreds of classrooms. I've had some wonderful folks working with me, and we've collected terrific data. So feel confident about the 7 steps, about partner reading. You'll see the writing process. We didn't even get to the writing process. You'll see those strategies in the book. You'll see more strategies about discourse, getting the darlings to talk. What else are else in the book? There's just a lot of, it's very teacher coach oriented. So we present the strategy for the teacher, and then we present the strategy for the coach to give back. So it's teacher, coach, teacher, coach, teacher, coach, and then reflection questions for all of them. And then there's a whole section for administration. How do we implement this? What are some of the pitfalls to anticipate? How can we make this run smoothly? And so questions that administrators have asked us are in there as well. So I think, you'll be able to find a lot of the information that we couldn't really get to. We just, we need 5 days. We need a workshop 5 days to go through all of the strategies that have a big effect size on students, that teachers like, that teachers can use in whatever subject area that they're teaching, not just ELA or ESL. These strategies are for every single subject, and especially we have the middle school and the high school coaches here. They will tell you it works beautifully at these levels, and this is where our students need it the most. This is where the newcomers are arriving. This is where the long-term L's are that should not have been long-term L's. We made them learn long-term L's. So let's get that label off by providing excellent instruction for them, which means that if we want excellent students, we want to nurture and support excellent teachers. And if we also want to make sure it works across the school, then we need to support, nurture our coaches and our administration. So I guess we can say thank you very much for all these wonderful questions, your comments, your observations, and yes, and how do we evaluate a coach? Yes, there's also evaluation strategies in the book. Yeah, different ways that we can, and even self-evaluation. So it starts with self-evaluation. How do we evaluate ourselves? And then how can others evaluate us? And so there's a whole big piece in every chapter on evaluation, and also evaluating and assessing the students. What do we mean by multilingual, multimodal assessment? And so it's time to go, but thank you all again.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you. Hope everybody has a good rest of your day, night.